Hi, this is Christopher Perrin, and I'm talking with Gaylan Dubose, who is the co-author of the Latin Alive series with Classical Academic Press. He's written all four books with Karen Moore, Latin Alive 1, 2, 3, and 4. Gaylan, would you mind telling us a little bit about how you got interested in Latin in the first place, such that you would become a lifelong Latin educator?
Well, it was so long ago that I honestly can't remember, but the first thing I remember about an interest in Latin, I was in the 7th grade in a little town south of San Antonio. There was no foreign language offered in the school system except Spanish. And one year would be Spanish 1, and the next year would be Spanish 2, and I never could work it into my schedule. So I was going to probably graduate from high school with no foreign language, and I wound up doing that. When I was in the 7th grade, a Texas history teacher who also went to our church retired and moved back to Kansas. Long time before that, she'd been a Latin teacher, and she knew that I was interested in learning a foreign language. I don't even know how she knew that, but she did. So she had 2 old Latin books, a Latin 1 and a Latin 2 book, and she gave me the books and said, "You can look at these and maybe you can learn some Latin." So I took the book, the Latin 1 book, and went to the first page, and there was a sentence that said, "Clara spectat Galbam," and it translated, "Clara looks at Galba." And I couldn't find a word for "at," so I quit because I couldn't understand why you didn't have a word for "at." So that went along that way, and I finished high school, and I went to North Texas State College, as it was then. And I was going to be a history teacher because that was absolutely my very first love. As a matter of fact, I taught high school history my senior year through a fluke of something that happened. But at that time in Texas, if you couldn't coach football, you couldn't get a job teaching history. The history teacher was the football coach, and that was it. So about the end of my freshman year, when I had an English teacher that I absolutely adored and wound up having her for 4 semesters, I decided I'd change my major to English. And she said, "I want you to minor in Latin because if you minor in Latin, you'll always have jobs at your schools, you'll have better students." And of course, she was right. So I taught Latin for 5 years. And then I had the wonderful opportunity of receiving a fellowship to the University of Minnesota. The same week I received the fellowship, approval of the fellowship, I got a job, was accepted for a job at an Episcopal school in Kobe, Japan. So I had to decide what I wanted to do. It's like choosing between a Lincoln and a Cadillac. And I decided to choose the fellowship, and I went to the University of Minnesota and earned a master's degree in classics, and the rest is history. Been doing it ever since.
What do you enjoy most about teaching students Latin? What keeps you doing that and loving that?
The looks on their faces, more than anything else, when their eyes light up and they smile and they say, "I got that, and I'm going to tell my mother what I learned today," and she thinks I'm a nerd because I get excited about all the things you tell me, and I know exactly how she feels. So just the interaction with the students,
Yeah.
and they make me very happy. They make me laugh. They really do. Sometimes I have to stop. I just go to pieces with things. Like the little boy who said a contralto is a low woman, and I just had to stop the class. I couldn't take it.
What is your basic approach to teaching Latin, especially since you're teaching Latin online? What is your pedagogy like?
Well, I don't. That's kind of hard to answer. What exactly do you mean?
Yeah. Well, what if a student's going to come into your class and might be asking, like, what kind of things will we be doing, especially when you get a Latin 1 student? How does this work? How does a student learn Latin?
Well, the first thing and this is sort of a heresy from some things I've been taught in graduate school. The first thing, you have to know the words. You have to know what the words mean. If you don't know what the words mean, you can't read the sentence or the story. So we always start first thing with vocabulary. And I do a lot, or try to do a lot, with vocabulary acquisition, and try to impress on the students that most people have to do something to learn the vocabulary. They can't just look at the list. So we do things like derivatives and games and write each word 10 times and I tell them you have to work at this.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go, and this is a typical chapter, I think, of most textbooks. We go into vocabulary, and then we talk about the grammar, and then the reading is the highlight. So, and I go slowly, sometimes maybe too slowly for some kids, but I have to know that they're going to get it. And I have to let them know that although my expectations of their learning are high, that they're not any pressure to do it quickly. That we take it very, very, very gently. And I think that's, if I've had a clue, a real clue about what my success has been, it's that I'm gentle with the kids and I don't make them feel under pressure, and we laugh a lot. And I really think that. I think it has a lot to do with it. And I've had several parents write me about how much they appreciate the fact that I don't make the kids feel pressured. And I never did. I never did. Doesn't work.
Thank you. Let me ask you another question about the text. You've co-authored the Latin Alive series. What makes Latin Alive special or different, or what excites you about the text in the series and teaching it?
Well, I think looking at the whole series and not any one certain level, I think the thing I like best about the text is it has many, many different kinds of Latin literature in the upper levels and many, many different authors. I don't know of any other Latin textbook ever that I've ever seen that has the range of history and types of Latin literature that Latin Alive has. I think that's what makes it maybe more special than anything else. And the Latin one book is a Latin one book, except for certain ones that I won't mention. So our Latin one book is fine. But when we get up into the 3 and 4 and the end of the 2, it's very exciting, all the different things. I mean, they're going to read about Attila the Hun. Who else can read about Attila the Hun? I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Newton, not so much.
What inspired you to write the curricula? Being an author over a 4-book series, I think it took 8 years to build out Latin Alive.
8 years. Mm-hmm.
Well, what inspired you to do such a crazy thing?
Well, it's been so long ago, and I've had the opportunity to swallow since then, so I don't really remember. But I think what happened, Karen asked me to look at some copies of Latin for Children, I believe it was, one that has some American history in Latin, and make some corrections, and I did that. And the next thing I knew, she said, "Do you want to write a Latin 1 book with me?" And I said, "Well, okay, I guess so." And I'd already written 2 other books, as I did a little teacher's resource book called Farrago Latina, which had quite a bit of success. And then I was sort of the co-author on Accessibility in Advanced Latin. My name's on it, but I didn't do a whole lot with that, as much as I wanted to. But I'd already done that anyway, so I thought, why not? And then I had done some corrections and added some study questions for a book called On the Margin from Oxford University Press. So I thought, well, I've done that too. So, okay, Karen, I'll do it. So we did that, and it took a good while. And so then she said, well, let's do a Latin 2 book. So we did. And now I'm thinking about a Latin 5 book. It was a labor of love. That's for sure. I enjoyed it greatly. I didn't think it would take quite that long.
Well, Gaylan, what would you say by way of inviting others, students, to come into your class?
Well, I'll say this. We'd love to have other students to come in. Any and all of you are welcome. We'll have a good time and we'll learn Latin. And you will get to know me, but more importantly, you'll get to know other students from all over the United States. We've become a family, especially the Latin one, because it's larger, and it's like we're all in the same room together. One of the students, the oldest boy in the class, was sick, and I could tell he was sick, and I asked him about it, and he went into some detail about his symptoms. And another little boy said to him, "Quinn, are you contagious?" And I just lost it because we all feel like we're together, and there are two different sets of parents who are there every class, and they're with me. They just can't get over these kids, how much fun it is. So come have fun with us and learn Latin.
Well, thank you very much, Gaylan.
Yes, sir.
That's just superb. We really appreciate your time with us.
My pleasure.